when he encountered it in New York. Thought it was so good. He refused wine with his meal and said, "Keep them coming." But of course, he was Irish, and you know how they are. The Clover Club itself was a gentleman's social club that that was founded here in Philadelphia around in the late 1880s by a gentleman by the name of Moses P. Handy, who was an original ass kicker of the old school. Major Handy had fought in the Union Army and was a character and a half. The club was journalists, a few artists, a few business people, but mostly journalists. And their purpose was to gather at the original Bellevue Hotel, which stood on this site. And the Bellevue had the best dinners in Philly. And that was part of their reason to exist, is, you know, journalists never get to eat well because it's a really terribly paid profession. I speak from experience. And any excuse, any way you can find to get a good meal is great. And so they found a good way to get a good meal. And they met, and it became, because it was a press club, you know, people like to do stuff with the press because then they get their name in the paper and they're happy. It got a certain amount of prominence because A, it was a press club, and B, because of the good dinners. And they used to meet here at the little hotel that was here. A man by the name of George Bolt was the manager and the owner, and he was a fanatic for quality. Everything had to be done well. He was extremely serious. And the club caught on and became quite famous, and they were famous mostly for having celebrity guests. They'd get senators, congressmen, sitting presidents would come and speak. Now, it was a tough gig if you were the speaker, because the Clover Club took no shit from anybody, and if you were boring, they let you know. Right there. And there's a great, let me just, I hate to speak from notes, but I want to make sure I get this right. One of the guests was a senator, right? Who stands up in front of these people after dinner and says, "When I was invited here, I was prepared for the worst." And one of the clubmen stands up, "So were we." You know, it was that kind of thing. And it was really disconcerting. And if you went on too long, they all started singing. Like in good harmony, but you know, they'd sing and drown you out. And the only person who ever beat them was Grover Cleveland. There was a reason why he was president. First, you know, they heckled him, he heckled them back. He was awesome at that. He was a good politician. Finally, you know, they ran out of heckle, then he spoke, and then he went on too long, and then they sang, and then he just stood there and waited and waited and waited until they sang themselves out. Then he finished what he had to say. So, you know, he told them, you know, you can sing, I'm just going to wait. You know, he was a good politician. So this club was hugely famous. They were famous for their punch that they handled out of this loving cup that looked suspiciously like a chamber pot. Invented by the same guy, perhaps, who invented the cyclone punch. It was regarded. One of the members, another journalist. You know, there's a theme here. And this punch was famous, but sometime around the turn of the century, the turn of the last century, you know, around 1900, 1905, they came up with a cocktail. Now, the actual inventor is lost to history as are the inventors of almost every cocktail worth drinking. But, you know, history that happens in a bar. You know what happens to people who hang out in bars in their memories. It's like, it's all very great while you're, you know, you discover a new cocktail that's delicious. You have one, that's good. You have another one. That one really hit the spot. Just one more, and the next morning, who knows who invented that cocktail? You know, there's a lot of blank spots in the history of drinking. This is definitely one of them. But George Bolt, in the early 1890s, moved on to, some would say better things, but definitely other things. And he moved on and became the manager of the Waldorf Astoria in New York, and was legendary there. And you know, everything he learned in Philly, he took to New York and kicked New York's ass with him. And basically, the Waldorf Astoria was the best run hotel in America. He was the best hotel proprietor. It was the most famous place. It was this amazing place of service. And the Clover Club is one of the things, cocktail is one of the things that the Waldorf Astoria featured as soon as they had it down here. I mean, by 1910, so the cocktail probably invented around 1908, 1909. By 1910, it's at the Waldorf Astoria. It's all over New York. It's all over the country. It's a simple cocktail. Some people debated whether it was a cocktail at all because they were the crusty conservatives like myself who believed a cocktail had bitters, sugar, and whiskey in it. And here's the thing with egg white and raspberry syrup. What? That's not a cocktail. That's barely even a punch. However, you know, the thing was also had a massive portion of gin in it and was quite effective. And we're doing, as far as I can tell, the original version had gin and vermouth, which makes it lighter and certainly tastier. If you make it with just gin, it's kind of a brutal drink because it's got the little, like, it's pink because of raspberry syrup. It's got the egg white for smoothness and a little bit of lemon juice. But there's such a healthy dose of gin in there that it really is kind of lethal. You know, it's like 4 Loko, except it's probably it's like 8 Loko. You know, it's all fruity and tarted up, but it will fucking kick your ass. So that is the problem with the original Clover Club. But or with if you just make it with gin. But some of the earliest recipes have gin and vermouth in it. You make it like that, and it's much more delightful. And then suddenly it's like, oh, this is great. So that's the version we're attempting to serve to you tonight, or this afternoon, whatever time it is. Time has a way of slipping on these things, if you noticed. You know, we've been just kind of maybe.
4:25.
So anyway, we're going to make a round of Clover Clubs here at the Bellevue Stratford on the site of the Bellevue, the Air, the successor of it, where the Clover Club was the house drink well into the 1950s. And I mean, you can't have a more beautiful bar room than this. We got a view. I mean, look how glorious it is in here. So let's enjoy that and.